Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading and life and everything in between, just like some pals who are hanging out on the front porch trying to figure things out while we have some coffee and maybe a piece of pie, and we listen to the chicken squawk, and we watch the leaves change and fall. Thank you so much for coming here with me today and hanging out. If we were on the front porch right now, I would tell you a few things. I would tell you that my job is going great. A few months ago, I took a job as, well, we'll just call it church secretary. I know we have to make up fancy names for all the things we do know, but basically, church secretary is what it is. And I took that job and it's going great, but it's also kind of chaotic because shortly after I took the job, the pastor of the church announced he's leaving and going to a different church. He guarantees me it has nothing to do with me taking the job. That's a little joke between us. But he has been at our church for 23 years. And so this is a big change for our church. So there's chaos. There is chaos right now. And as the church secretary, I'm dealing with a lot of it. So the thing that I figured out, though, is that I thrive on chaos in the way that when chaos is dumped on my plate and I have to wade through it and fix things, I thrive on that. And so at the end of the day, perhaps this all worked out the way that it's supposed to. If we were on the front porch right now, I would also tell you about, recently, we called roosters. I went out and we had way too many roosters. And I'm like, what is going on here? I didn't think I hatched out that many roosters. And when the culling was all done, it turned out that we had 12 roosters for 16 hens. You can't do that, y'all. You can't have 12 roosters for 16 hens. So it was time to cull. And so we're culling. And one of the farm cats came over and stole a chicken head. That's what farm cats do. And shortly after that, I let the dogs out to do their business. And one of the dogs was trying to steal the chicken head from the cat. And here's me yelling across the yard, "Hey, that's not your chicken head." That's what I'm yelling at the dog. And then it occurs to me, what a weird thing to yell across the yard. Farm life is so weird. We're yelling things like, "That's not your chicken head." I'm sure you too have stories of odd things that you have yelled around your farm or your homestead or your yard that you just never thought would come out of your mouth. If we were on the front porch together, I would also tell you, I have been cutting my husband's hair for about 25 years. We've been married, actually 25 years this month. And so I've been cutting his hair for about 25 years. Nothing fancy, just, like a clipper cut. And the other day I'm giving him a haircut and he has dark hair, right? And where I'm cutting his hair in the bathroom, it doesn't matter how many lights I turn on in the bathroom, there's still shadows and I just can't see. And so I said to him, you know what? It's not going to be too long before I'm going to be in here trying to cut your hair and I'm going to need a headlamp so I can see what I'm doing so I don't miss any of the hairs. And we both laughed because it was funny, but it was funny because it was true, right? Getting older is awesome. And if we were on the front porch sitting together, I would tell you about how when we were on vacation a few weeks ago up at the cabin, it was very rainy. And so I spent some time watching some old Westerns on the TV up there. And I couldn't help but be reminded how hard life was back then, in the Westerns, how hard life was. The kids were walking to school by themselves or riding a horse miles to school by themselves. Women were having babies and just hoping they survived the year. Men were heading off to town and you weren't sure if they were going to make it back alive. You couldn't call them and say, "Are you late or are you dead?" You couldn't, you just didn't know. Right? And that was their normal. That was just a Tuesday afternoon for them. That was their normal. And I was thinking about how now we are living in the cushiest time in history with climate control and grocery stores you don't even have to go into and cars that will tell you when the tire pressure is low. And what do we have? We have more anxiety. We have more depression. We have more people saying things like, "I just can't deal How did we get here? Like how did that become a thing? We live in a world now where we've got apps that will tell us where all our loved ones are at any moment of the day. We have Instant Pots and air fryers and Roombas and automatic cat feeders and 8,000 options for what to stream on TV right now. And we're connected to this glowing screen full of hundreds of thousands of millions of people that we can talk to at any time of day, but we're probably never going to meet them in real life. And what do we have? We have more anxiety, we have more depression, and we have more people saying, I just can't deal. Now, I am not saying that I want to swap my washing machine out for a wash tub that I have to walk down to the river and get buckets of water and walk it back to my house and like fill up the wash. Like, I don't want to go back to that, okay? But it does make me wonder if people back then could survive all that was going on with like this grit and this faith and community, what in the world happened to us? And I think that's worth asking, and I think it's worth talking about. And I'm asking us to look deeper than just pointing fingers at the other side or any easy answers that always come up, because I think there are a lot of different things that make up this mess. And I've got my own theories, but I would love to hear yours. Like, what happened? How do we undo this? Life gets easier and we get softer. Like, how do we undo that? And do we really want to undo that? Do we really want what would come along with that? Would we be willing to give up the progress that has come along with that? Or sometimes I wonder, like, where in time was the fine line that we crossed over when we had this decent balance of stuff that was tough, but not too tough, so we still had an ability to deal and process and, like, do all that. Like, where was that line in history, in time? And when people were at that line, did they even know it? Did they have any concept of that? Sometimes I wonder, this is kind of crazy to wrap your head around, will folks, like 50, 75, 100 years from now, will folks look back on this time in 2025 and say, wow, those folks had a lot of grit. They were so tough. It's amazing the things that they could handle in 2025. Isn't that kind of weird to think about? And then I wonder things like, is my perspective on this just because I am closer to 50 than I am to 40, and I'm not an idealistic 20-year-old anymore who thinks I understand everything that's wrong with the world and I understand exactly what we all need to do to fix it, which I'm starting to think that's just something that 20-year-olds of any time and space feel. And I'm wondering, is it that 60 and 70 and 80-year-olds look at what the world is becoming and say the world is going to hell? Like, I'm starting to guess, is that just something that 60 and 70 and 80-year-olds of every time and space have felt? Like, is it just like a thing that we all do? It doesn't matter what decade we're in. Like, this is just something we all do when we get to certain stages of life. Is this just what it is? There's a quote that I see sometimes floating around. I looked up who it's attributed to, and it apparently is G. Michael Hopf, Hopf. And the quote is this, you've probably seen it before. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. So then it just cycles again. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And do we even have the perspective to truly tell what kind of time we are in? Are we in a hard time? Are we in a good time? Like, do we even have the perspective to know that? If you went back in history and you asked people from every decade, would anybody say, we live in the best time ever? Like, does anybody even have the perspective while they're in it to know that they're in the best time ever? Or does everyone think the time that they're living in is the hardest time with the most problems, even if at the same time they understand they've also had a lot of improvements from the decades prior. Or maybe there's just some kind of weird cosmic balance where advances, like technological advances or cultural advances, also have to come with some kind of other setback that's just as large, and there's nothing we can do about it. Like, is that just how it works? I don't know. I have no idea. These are things we talk about on the front porch, right? And maybe the point isn't to solve the riddle. Maybe it's just to know that it's there, to notice it, and to admit that maybe for all of our progress, something has also been lost. But maybe it's not about then deciding we're going to go backwards and throw away the washing machine and ditch the grocery store. Maybe it's about just being intentional with what we carry forward. And here's, this is when my brain really gets going. Here's the kicker. What if our great-great-grandparents were thinking the same thing that we are right now? What if they looked at whatever the newfangled convenience was of their time? You know, like, I don't know, like coal stoves instead of wood fires, or trains instead of wagons, or store-bought fabric instead of homespun. What if they looked at all that and they said, oh, you know what? Life has changed so much. I just wish we could go back to the way my great-great-grandparents lived. What, isn't that wild to think about? We can't even wrap our heads around what their nostalgia might have been, or what they thought they were losing with all the progress that was happening at that point. Which kind of makes me wonder if every generation, in every time and place, has always looked around and felt both awe at the progress and grief for what slips away with it. Maybe that's just part of being human. Maybe part of being human is just living in this like tension between the world that we've gained and the world that we've lost, and always kind of wondering if we would be stronger and braver and happier if we just lived back then. That's pretty much what I've got to say on the front porch today. Thank you for joining me. Now, don't forget to take the jar of jelly and those pickles that I set out for you, okay? I hope you will come back for another conversation. Talk to you soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com, find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media, or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay farmish.